And with that, we are thrilled to welcome in Tom Hamilton
Call
to the
this
show.
man by his proper name.
The Hall of Famer.
Thank you.
Tom Hamilton.
Call him by his proper name.
Yes.
Hall of Famer Tom Hamilton.
Tom, congratulations.
Thank you.
On your soon-to-be induction to the Hall of Fame, the Ford C. Frick Award. A long overdue, and what an honor it is. But congratulations.
Well, thank you, guys. I appreciate it. Not in there yet, because I'm sure I'm getting a call here in the coming days where they're like, we misread the ballots. I'll believe it maybe that day in Cooperstown, but it's been very surreal. I appreciate your kind words, guys. But yeah, I mean, we've been very humbled by it, overwhelmed by it, grateful. I mean, you run out of adjectives. We've been very blessed, and I'm not trying to sound like a preacher here, but my wife and I have 4 healthy children, 3 healthy grandchildren, and boy, in this day and age, that's all that matters. But thank you.
Right.
Go ahead, Jason.
Where were you when you found out, and who told you?
Well, you know what, Jason? What they do is they tell you now. I've been through this 3 other times before, and I'm not trying to sound pretentious, but because of that, you know that if you don't get a phone call, you weren't the person that was selected, voted in, whatever. So they call you, gosh, I think, Jason, maybe it was July or August. You're in the middle of the season. They tell you you're one of the 10 nominees, which, again, you're honored by that.
Sure.
And when you look at the names of those guys that are nominated, you're, again, always kind of blown away that you're one of them. And the one thing they do ask you is, hey, look, this is going to happen at the winter meetings. They tell you the date. In this case, it happened to be Wednesday, December 11th. They ask you to please be available that morning for a phone call. Just make sure you're available for a phone call if you're the guy that gets chosen or the lady that gets chosen. So, again, having gone through this before, you don't expect the phone call. Not that big a deal. And we're in the midst of doing things, getting ready for the kids to come home and whatnot. And about 11 o'clock, my wife was like, hey, I do have a lunch with a good friend at noon. Is it okay to get ready and go? And I was like, honey, it's 11 o'clock. I'm going downstairs. I'm going to get a workout in. Go get ready for your lunch. If we were going to get a call, we would have had it by now. And so that's kind of how our morning went. And at 11:35, 11:40-ish, the phone rings, and I don't know how you guys are. If I don't know the number, I'm not answering.
That's right. That's right.
Scam lightly.
You better pick up that phone. What is this?
And you know it's 10 robocalls coming if you answer the wrong call. It came up Cooperstown.
Wow.
Which, again, guys, I'm sure you're this way too. How many times do you get a phone call, you don't know the number, and it's from a city that person has lived in it for 30 years? So fortunately, when that call came, you knew what it meant. So from that point on to this day, you just kind of, there are times at night, Wendy and I look at each other and like, this is incredible and can't believe it happened. And like I say, you don't get into this for these honors. You're just grateful to get the job. But it was quite a phone call.
I can't imagine when you look at the phone and you see Cooperstown.
Yeah.
Does the blood rush out of your head? You fall out of the chair? Like, that's incredible.
Well, I fell off the elliptical. Old people like me that have had double knee replacement, that's what we're limited to now. So, and honestly, guys, that's why we were so flabbergasted. At 11:40, I've kind of forgotten about it. You're working out, you're watching whichever sports show you're watching or whatever it was on TV, the news, whatever. And kind of, at that point, you're like, we didn't get the call, no biggie.
Yeah.
And but then you find out the one thing they told us right away was, please do not call your kids. Do not call the ball club. Nobody knows this. And we want to have the ability to release it at noon, which was another 10, 15 minutes away. So now you understand why the call came so late. Again, I was of the impression if you were going to be told, you would have been told more than 15 minutes before they release it. But in this day and age, guys, as you know, with social media, if somebody gave you that news at 9 o'clock, you call one of your kids, the next thing you know, somebody's posting it. So it was stunning.
You know, there's something when if you're somebody who is at least 40, and I'm 53, Jason's about 65. No, but obviously we've had great broadcasters in this town for all sports, but there's nothing like when you were a kid before TV got so crazy and every game was on, that you would all summer long turn on the radio and listen to your broadcaster. And there's still to this day, even with everything on TV now, there's still that special relationship between the baseball play-by-play guy and the fan that, to me, is more special than any other of this type of relationship. And listening to you, I feel that, and I grew up in New York, so I didn't grow up listening to you, but I love listening to you on the radio. I will put on the radio. I'll sometimes just get in my car and listen to you on the radio instead of watching you on TV, because I enjoy that experience, and you paint the picture so nicely.
And before you answer, I want to jump in. I think part of it is the pace of baseball allows you to get to know the announcer.
Yes.
Where basketball, it's
right.
back and forth.
Football's only 17
football,
games.
It's only 17
this is
games.
a whole season,
And you have 162 games, and it's leisurely to an extent. You have time between pitches, not as much now with the pitch clock.
Sure.
But you have an opportunity, and Tom, you are such a masterful storyteller, and you have time to let we get to know you, I'd feel like everybody knows Jimmy Donovan. Everybody got to know Jimmy. Everybody knew Joe Tate. But it's different in baseball because you have more time between pitches, especially if the game's out of hand or whatever. You can develop almost like a relationship that you don't get in the other sports.
Yeah, Jason and Adam and Garrett, I agree. I mean, when I got into the business, I was like, I will make a horrible dairy farmer, and my mom and dad agreed, and that's probably why they sold the farm, thinking if we're leaving this clown the farm, we're all in trouble. So, for me, I just wanted to do play-by-play. I wasn't good enough to play professionally, and so this seemed like the next best thing. I loved every game that I called in football, basketball, and baseball. I called more football and basketball prior to getting to the major leagues than anything. That's because that was what was available as I worked my way up the ladder. So I feel like I have a great appreciation for all three sports and what it takes to call all three, and love calling all three because they're all different. But you kind of nailed it from the standpoint, we're an everyday event in baseball. And look, no one, no matter how big our ego is, none of us in the business know that no one is listening 3 hours a night. They're in and out of their car. They're in and out of the boat. They're at a little league game with their kids. They're golfing, whatever the case may be. We're getting people listening maybe 10 minutes at a time. You want to be out in the summer. We've lived inside all winter long in this part of the country. And so I think that's the one beauty that we have over the other sports. Look, football's an event. As you mentioned, there are 17 games. There are however many now in college. That's an event. Basketball is the time of the year where you may be indoors. You're going to listen. We've got a great one doing the games now, and Tim Alcorn, who you don't think anyone can follow Joe Tate, and who's been better at it than Tim Alcorn, and that's a credit to Tim. But we do have the advantage that it's every day. It's kind of like reading a book. In that, one day you may read 5 pages, one day you may not read any. And so we've got that daily connection, and I'm very grateful for that. But even more so, guys, I'm in a community, my wife and I and the kids that, aren't here anymore, of course, after being raised, but some are, some aren't. But the point being, we're in a community that loves sports that's not apathetic. They may be angry with your club. They may be thrilled with your club, but the worst thing you can have is apathy, and we don't have that here, and it's why it's been such an incredible place to raise our kids and to have the passionate sports fans. Whether they're mad or happy, at least they care.
Yeah, that's true.
Tom, I don't like these guys because they got all the Hall of Fame questions out the way. They warmed your shoulders up and everything, and now they like, yeah, we got to have a question about fans being upset. This is so. Obviously, the Guardians have made a lot of moves. Naylor, Jimenez, and they've actually signed some other people as well. And these guys tell me, as we contrast sports and football, and the way you go about building teams and sustain is different from basketball. Maybe you can explain, because you've been around the game so long, you've been around the organization so long, how some of the moves on the surface may not seem like fans will be upset or happy about them, but the difference between the way the Guardians have to operate in baseball in contrast to the way some of the other things might work with the Browns or the Cavs and having to rebuild it a different type way.
Well, it's a great point, Garrett. And I think we have a perfect example in this town in Donovan Mitchell. And, it is so great to see the Cavaliers having the kind of start that they have had. I mean, talk about capturing a city from the get-go in a long NBA season. They've done it. And they went out and traded for a guy like Donovan Mitchell. But more importantly, in the NBA or in the NFL, they were able to offer him more money than anywhere he would go as a free agent. So you have the ability to keep that young man in this town, especially if he likes it, and it's obvious that he does. He obviously seems to be, I don't know Donovan Mitchell, but it's not hard to see he's a good guy. It's not hard to see he's a great teammate. It's not hard to see what other people think of him. That's the beauty that those sports have over baseball. That's my biggest disappointment with baseball. It's never going to change until we get a salary cap with a salary floor.
Yep.
Where we have a level playing field,
Preach.
where you have the ability to, I think it is so frustrating for a fan and for me and for the organization. We ought to be rewarded in baseball for having a smart front office like we do, that draft, develop, and trade. And it shouldn't be, the Yankees. Oh, okay, well, you get to cherry pick just because you have a financial component that nobody else can compete with. And I think that could be the next CBA Armageddon in a couple of years. How do we level the playing field more so we don't just have 5 clubs bidding on these superstars? If we don't have Jose Ramirez, who's one of the top 5 players in baseball, who's a future Hall of Famer, if he isn't willing to come together with Paul Dolan, and, he's getting well compensated. But by the same token, he could have gotten more money if he had become a free agent and whatnot. That's a player's prerogative. I think those players have earned that right. But how lucky are we that Jose, when he said, I want to stay here, said, I want to stay here and make it work. I also want to stay here and play on a good ball club. That's the frustrating thing. I know some people are obviously frustrated with some of the moves, but I think the one thing this front office has earned should be some trust. One, the offseason's not even close to being over. We don't have our first game until the last week in March, and things will happen between now and then. Getting Carlos Santana back here, I think it was important, and I think Josh Naylor's a heck of a player. But you lose Jimenez at second, you have to have a better first baseman defensively to make up for some of the ground balls that Jimenez got that nobody else in baseball gets. So I think people have to give that a chance. The one thing that they're very good at doing here is threading the needle. You think about it, guys. Think of Tito's time and now Stephen Vogt since 2013. So if you include this past season, that's 12 years. 7 of those years we've been in the playoffs. And that's the ability that they have had in the front office to thread the needle and not have a teardown like we're seeing this. How would you like to be a Chicago White Sox fan?
Oh.
You know what? We'll see in 2030, and maybe we'll be competitive. And that's not happened here.
Yeah, well, the division's going to be great next year because Minnesota still competitive. Yeah. Obviously, Kansas City and Detroit are on their way up. It's going to be fun. Last thing, Tom, I'm curious. Emmanuel Clase, who was finished, I think, third in the Cy Young, was it third or second? I think he finished third. He had a pretty bad series against the Yankees there, and just didn't have a great postseason period. Are you concerned at all about the mental hurdles he may have to get over heading into next season?
I think it's a great question, Adam. Am I concerned? No, because I don't think that'll be an issue for him. That being said, I don't know.
Yeah.
We can all say there's no carryover, there's no residual. I think we've all seen firsthand. Jose Mesa was never the same guy, not even after the 97 blown save in Game 7 of the ninth inning, but even before that. I think Clase has that mental capacity to move beyond the postseason, because when you look at what he did all season long, I mean, he was basically perfect for an entire season. I think it also shows you, and I'm actually happy, not that he had a rough October, but I like the fact that games weren't over in October. Without that, look what Cleveland did to the Yankees back into the bullpen.
Mm-hmm.
I think what we want is drama. I don't want the game to be over if you've got the lead after 6 innings. That's not good for the game. And I'll put those 3 games with New York at our place and the last couple of games with the Detroit Tigers as some of the best playoff baseball we've seen as far as theatrics. But I think you raise a valid point. I really do. We'll never know until we get into the meat of the season. I don't think it'll be an issue, but you know what? We'll see.
Yeah. Tom, again, congratulations. Thanks for taking the time with us.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate
we'll look forward to seeing you give your speech at the Hall of Fame. It's going to be an amazing day.
That's crazy.
Have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. We'll see you soon.
Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Guys, thanks for having me. I enjoy it, and thanks to all of your viewers as well.